Hi, everybody. I am Marshall Little, your host, and we are back on another episode of Inner Self Podcast. So, for today's episode, really wanted to hit up on how exercise and taking care of yourself can have such a huge impact on your mental health. Um, for one, I'm a big fan of eating healthy, staying active, whether it's in the gym, doing sports. Jiu-jitsu is one thing that is really big for me that I like to constantly work at, and it keeps me active, keeps my body moving. And there's even other people in there that are 20 years older than I am, 10 years, 15 years, that are in there as well, always putting in the work. And you can even see the benefits that they all get from it. So, obviously, mental health, it releases those endorphins and really gets all that pumping through your body, makes you feel good, makes you last longer, live longer. It's just overall so beneficial to one's life as well as their mental health. So that's really what we're going to be covering today in this episode. So, you see, exercise, it can have huge impacts on our mental health and well-being. For instance, there's many studies out there that have shown that regular exercise can reduce stress, anxiety, and depression while also improving mood. This is something that I know I always preach to people if they're going through a rough time in life, or they're finding themselves getting depressed or anything. The first thing I ask them is, I'm like, okay, well, what are your eating habits? How active are you? Are you in the gym? Are you playing a sport on the side, doing whatever active hobby it is? It doesn't even have a sport or have to be a sport. It can do anything, just going out, walking, biking, hiking. I noticed I just rhymed. I should be a rapper. Um, and doing all of those other things. Uh, the whole point of it is getting that heart pumping, getting that blood flowing, and your body moving so that your brain can release those endorphins and overall make you in a much better mood and feeling better. Not only overall about life, but I mean, even about yourself. Because if you take care of yourself, you work out and you eat good, you're going to look good. So, and then in turn, it's like just a big, constantly revolving circle. Um, so many benefits that you get from it. I mean, for instance, exercise, it can also help improve sleep. It can boost your self esteem. It can also increase feelings of well being. All of these things are some of the many benefits that you get from being active, working out, and just getting after it day in, day out. So, regular exercise has been found to be as effective as medication for mild to moderate depression and anxiety. It can also be used to help manage the symptoms of more severe mental health issues. Exercise can also help to reduce negative thoughts, improving concentration, and increase energy levels. So, obviously, if you have been diagnosed with a severe case of depression or anxiety, a lot of times you're also going to need the help of some medication. Um, Everybody's different, everybody's mind is different. But one thing that is common throughout is the impacts that exercise has and the way it helps with individuals suffering from these issues. You don't even have to be suffering from these issues. everybody in some sense will suffer at one point in their life, a period of depression or anxiety. Maybe somebody just went through a deployment and, experienced a lot of trauma there. Maybe someone just went through a bad breakup, a bad relationship. There's going to be a period of grief there that they're going through. Also, let's say you have a family member or a friend that passes away. These are all things that can cause someone to have some type of stage where they go through depression. Now, obviously, the level of it is going to be different for each and every person. And it's not everyone is going to suffer through something like that on a clinical level, I guess you would say. But one of the biggest things that can greatly improve all this stuff is being active, exercise, taking care of your body. It's exercise also has a positive effect on our physical health. Regular exercise can help to reduce the risk of chronic disease, such as heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and some forms of cancer. It can also help to lower blood pressure, improve cholesterol levels, and increase bone density. That's one of the big important pieces, especially as you get older, to stay active and do some sort of load-bearing exercise. Because what these things do, it's going to strengthen your bones, it's going to strengthen your ligaments, and it's going to also help you with that range of motion, especially if you're doing a lot of work to improve your mobility, which will also help limit the risk of injury. And along with the chronic disease and such as like heart disease and diabetes and stuff like that, there's even numerous diets out there that have been backed up by many years of studies to show that, these things can really help minimize the risk of one having to suffer from it. So one of the many reasons to be healthy and to, are not only for our mental health, but our physical health as well. Especially, being able to live into your later years, and let's say you have kids and you want to see your grandkids grow or great grandkids grow, or even if you don't have kids and you want to be able to enjoy your retirement years, all your, the fruits of your labor that, you've put in, you've invested all time and money into whatever fund it is, to prepare for retirement. It'd be nice to actually get to enjoy those things as opposed, for many years, as opposed to, only being able to enjoy it for a short amount of time, or, there's even people that don't get to enjoy it at all. But I think that it's definitely important for many reasons that we take care of ourselves. The body, it's a machine. We've got to continue to move it, and it wants to move. That stuff is ingrained in our DNA. We were at one point hunter-gatherers, so running around chasing woolly mammoths and everything, and just to survive. So it's the body is meant to move, and the heart rate to get up and get going day in, day out. And we're not meant to just sit around and not do anything, because that can also have a huge negative effect on one's mental health. It's like the old saying, an idle mind is the devil's playground. I could be saying that wrong, but basically what that means is, we sit around, we're not doing anything, we're not, being productive, or not getting out there and getting that release of endorphins. And that's when negative thoughts and overthinking starts to become a thing, and you start dwelling on whatever issues you might have in your life, and anything like that. And in turn, it can result into depression and anxiety. So really, when it comes to mental health, the key is to find an activity that you enjoy and that you can stick to. There's a lot of activities out there that I remember, for instance, one time I sat down, I was like, I want to try this, I want to try that. And I literally sat down and I wrote this huge list of things activities that I wanted to get into. And what that ended up doing was it allowed me to kind of sit back and look at all these things and be like, okay, well, for one, there's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. I also have my job. I also have, on the days I get my kids, so these things are not, I'm not going to be able to fit in all these activities all the time. So I'm not saying you can have more than, one activity that you're into. I'm just saying be realistic with it. So that's what I mean by find an activity that you enjoy and that you can stick to. For me, it's jujitsu, and fishing, anything like hunting and fishing. Those are like the big three for me. And honestly, like if you sit down, all three written on a piece of individual paper, and you told me you can only take one, that's going to be your one activity for the rest of your life. For me, I would pick jujitsu just because it's something I get the most benefit from. Not only is it something that I love, something that I'm passionate about, but also for me, the physical and mental, the emotional benefits that I get from it. So, but like I said, everything's different, or everybody's different. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be intense or time consuming. Even just a few minutes of walking or stretching, can truly make a difference. And ultimately, the key is not only are we improving our mental health, but we're also improving our physical health as well. So, excuse me. I feel like we as human beings have our society, as technology as advances, it's easy for us to kind of fall into the computer screen or the phone or TV, video games, whatever it is. It's easy for us to fall into those things and end up it consumes the rest of our time, and then we don't end up we end up not doing the things that are really the most beneficial for us, and that's being physically active, whether that's going for a walk every day or doing, let's say you get up, you want to do yoga every morning, or going to the gym, whatever the case is, some form of physical activity that is going to get your heart rate up. You're going to exert some form of energy, which in turn causes your brain to release these endorphins into your body that makes you feel so much better. And less people are doing that nowadays. This especially in the younger generation, because they have that endorphin release right at their fingertips. You see kids all the time, all day on the iPad or on the video games, so as opposed to when I was a kid, I'll be 36 in July, but I remember when I was a kid, my parents would literally kick us out the door and was like, basically, you're not coming back into this house until the street lights come on, until it's sunset. So, and we'd go out, ride bikes, we'd climb trees, build forts, play ball, whatever the case was, but we were always doing something physical and we were outside. So, and you also see it. So, anyone that doesn't know, I used to be a drill sergeant at one time, and I remember you could even see it then, and even talking to people that are drill sergeants now, or people that are recruiters, one of the common factors that they see as each generation gets to that age and wants to enlist in the military is that less and less are physically, either not physically capable, or they're overall just so far behind in terms of physical development as opposed to my generation or generations before me. And a lot of that is due to kids growing up not being as physically active, or poor eating habits, and all of that stuff. You can even see it also too, how a lot of them manage stress, and their ability to manage it. It's crazy looking at it, but you can really kind of pinpoint it down to these certain areas where a lot of this stuff has had that type of effect on individuals, as time goes by. So I think that's something that not only do we as a society need to get back to and really promote more, being physically active, eating well. I think that that's something we need to really push onto our youth as well, because all this stuff gets tied into years down the road when you start dealing with issues such as any type of chronic disease like heart disease or diabetes, even certain types of cancers. We can impact that now, not only with ourselves, but especially with our youth. And that's the biggest takeaway I would have on it, in terms of being able to put all that stuff into motion. It's tough. It's tough when I sit here and I think about it, but ultimately, that's something that I think we need to put a bigger stress on, is the importance of a healthy diet and physical activity. Obviously, the mental health crisis around the United States, is an issue, and a lot of times it seems like the easy answer is, throw medication at people. And yes, some people do will benefit from medication. You know, some of them that's what they need because they suffer from a chronic illness. Uh, and then there's also some people that may not suffer from it chronically. They're just in a hard point in their life. And whether they suffer from it chronically or not, you know, being physically active and exercising, it's going to have such a major impact on combating those issues. So, really, that's the big thing I wanted to cover today because, you know, I was sitting thinking a couple days ago, I was reading an article and it was talking about, you know, the mental health crisis and the numbers in terms of how many people suffer from depression and how the numbers seem to keep growing. Now, obviously, there are many other factors that come into play, and you can't really pinpoint it to one. That's something that would be hard to, you know, pinpoint data on, but you can kind of get a grasp of looking at, you know, the overall numbers. And ultimately, I think being able to push that information out, like, you know, hey, get out there, go to the gym, go for a run, a walk, you know, get out there, be active. I mean, you can even do push-ups, sit-ups, you know, in your house, something. Do something that's going to get your body moving, and I promise you that you will feel so much better afterwards. Because anytime we do something hard or something challenging, you always feel better after you do it. Whether that's, you know, you just got done finishing a major project, or you just got done doing a college class or anything of that nature, like a really hard workout. You know, a lot of that stuff that challenges you, at the end of it, it's like when you finally hit that finish line, it's something psychological that really makes it to where, you know, you kind of sit back and you're like, man, I feel great. I just accomplished that, or I just finished that. Because how many people do you know that do not ever attempt to do anything? You know, they'll talk about it. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've been guilty of it. Like, I'll talk about doing stuff, and, you know, this podcast is one of them. That was something I talked about doing for the longest time. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And then I'll adjust as I go, you know, adapt and overcome. And for me, that was one of the biggest accomplishments that I had, was actually getting this podcast going and getting these episodes out on not only the Apple Podcasts app, but also on YouTube. And, you know, so it was something for me that took me out of my comfort zone, just because, you know, I'm an introvert at heart. You know, I can be an extrovert when needed, but like majority of the time, like I feel more like an introvert than anything. So that was why with this project, for me, it was more, it was a huge accomplishment for me being able to do it. So ultimately, whatever it is that you think, you know, you're thinking about doing, whatever project you're thinking about starting, do it. The most you can do is fail. But even then, you can see where you failed at and adjust and improve, and then go back at it again. You know, that's how we learn, is from our mistakes. So go out, Do that project you've always wanted to do. See where you can improve on after each time you do it, and then continue to adjust and grow. That's what this podcast is all about, helping each other grow. Because whether you know it or not, anyone listening to this, you're helping me grow. So hopefully I can give that same kind of, results back to you. So the same benefit back to you. So I appreciate everybody who listens to this. Once again, if you're going through a tough time and you feel like you have no one to talk to, if anything, talk to me. Reach out to me on Instagram, at the Inner Self Podcast, or on, if you know me personally, by phone, email, whatever the case is. But please reach out, because you always have someone to talk to. There's numerous hotlines out there, numerous resources, so never feel like you're backed into a wall and there's no way of getting out, because it'll be tough, but you can always make your way out. You can always change and become the man or woman you want to be. We are all the authors of our own story. I firmly believe that. So write your story the way you want it to be written. Whatever you wanted to be as a kid, be that. That's one of the biggest things that I've been focusing on. Because we tend to, as we get older, we think we're running out of time or whatever other things that we have going on in life. There's no way of doing that or achieving that. Well, I'm here to tell you that's wrong. All right, it's the farthest from the truth. If you want something bad enough, you will find a way. Always remember that. So that will conclude this week's podcast. I appreciate everyone for all the love and support that you have all shown, everyone that's reached out to me. Thank you so much, because it truly means a lot. And once again, this is the Inner Self Podcast, and thank you for watching and listening.